Hello everybody, Marcos Villegas for Fight Up TV here in Las Vegas at the Zion's headquarters, being joined by Mr. Dan Hardy, who's to the right of me. And Dan, lately you've been doing a lot of press, a lot of news coming out with the heart condition that you suffered that made you get forced out of your fight. For our viewers that don't exactly know what happened, explain the situation and how that all came about.
Okay, well, the fight was organised for California, and they have a few extra tests that we have to do in the medicals, and one of them was an EKG. So I went to get all my blood work and physical done as usual, and the EKG showed that I have an irregular heartbeat. So I had a bunch more tests and stress tests and ultrasounds and this kind of stuff, and it turns out I have something called WPW, Wolff-Parkinson-White, but I don't have the syndrome because I've never had any symptoms. I just have the pattern. So there's a slight possibility that something could go wrong, but it's very unlikely. But California see it as I'm too great of a risk, so they don't want to take that chance. So I'm just trying to figure out what comes next. Really, I'm absolutely fit and healthy. I've got no pain, no discomfort, no symptoms or anything. So if the options are have surgery to fight again or not fight again, then that's a tough decision. But I know which way I'm leaning already.
And what way is that?
Well, I just don't want somebody going in and starting messing with my heart. It's done me well for 31 years, and I have, like I said, I've had no symptoms. So, the idea of somebody, feeding wires up into my heart to burn out cells and stuff, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It's not logical. I don't get paid enough, and I don't, it's just not worth it. If I was considering fighting for another 5 or 10 years, then perhaps, but right now it's just don't seem worth it. It seems like an opportunity more than anything to kind of change direction and do something new. Reading
the press that you did do regarding the condition, reading it, you seem like very at peace, like you're okay if you go ahead and you just stop fighting. And was that something that immediately you felt, or it took you a while? Because when news like this is presented to someone, usually it's kind of hard for them to take it in, and then after a few months they're able to see it how you're seeing it now currently.
I don't know. I've always kind of had the habit of taking things in my stride a little bit, and I have a lot of plans for when my fighting career comes to an end. Obviously, I'm not fighting, for a lot longer anyway. My cutoff was always 35, so even if I fought for another 4 years, I've still got to start thinking about things after the fight game, which is approaching. And after my losing streak, I had a lot of plans in line of what I was going to do if my career came to an end, because I always said to myself I would never continue my fight career outside of the UFC. I got to the UFC, that was my first goal, and I will finish my career with the UFC regardless of how that is. So I'd already started making plans for what I want to do, and started to get quite excited about them. Then I won a couple of fights, and that changed things. So I'm just kind of living day by day, really. I'm just kind of enjoying each one, and I've had a great week. I feel, obviously this is not a time where most people would be happy, but I'm on top of the world.
Speaking of that, have you had any contact with the UFC? Have they reached out to you and been like, hey, this is what's going to happen, or we have a plan for you that you're going to go ahead and fight outside the U.S.? Has any of that come to fruition?
Not really. Nothing's been discussed as such. I think as far as the UFC see it, there's a surgery that needs to happen before I can fight. But that's that's sort of a discussion. I need to give them my case and my opinion, because I've been fighting for years and years. I've been training since I was 6. I've never had any issues. So, the likelihood of something happening now is very, very slim. But I understand if they don't want to take that risk, and obviously I wouldn't do it if I thought something was going to happen, because I wouldn't want that on the sport, let alone on myself. And in the sport's still in a fragile position now, where if something like that were to happen, it's going to reflect badly on everybody. And I've done a lot to help build this sport. I wouldn't want to kind of undo all that, by being stubborn and going in there when I'm not well. Yeah, I have the option of going back to the UK and seeing my 3 doctors there, and I also have an option to go out to California and see some other doctors there. But I'm going to speak to the UFC first and see what they want me to do. I trust the opinion of the doctor that I've already seen, the cardiologist, and I really feel like they've given me the best advice and best approach they could. But it just didn't seem like a very logical one of going in my arteries and studying my heart to see if they could fix it, because that's another thing. They've not even told me that it's something they can actually treat. They need to find out where the second heartbeat is before they can, yeah, exactly. So.
Given that, and I know in prior tests something did come up, an irregular heartbeat, but that was it. Did you ever have a feeling that because the prior tests something did show up, that maybe down the road something would come up, or you just wasn't even in your mind at that time?
Not really, because the only other circumstance that it showed up was it was a short notice fight I took in Florida. I was training at American Top Team at the time, and one of their guys had pulled out, so I stepped in to take his place, and it was literally on the day's notice. And I'd not been feeling great. I'd been training constantly for 3 weeks at American Top Team, get my ass kicked, and I was exhausted, and my weight was right down. I mean, I walked on the scales at 169. So I just kind of figured that my body was under a lot of stress, and it was just something because of that. But they cleared me to fight, and they didn't see it as a reason to keep me off the card. And I mean, I lost the fight, but I'm still alive, so nothing went too bad. But I never expected something to show up, no, because I've had so many medical tests and so many fights in the past. Never occurred to me that something might show up.
So you in the current right now, of course, you got to do a lot of thinking, but outside of that, I guess, what is the plan for you to go ahead and handle this, and maybe if there is, an idea of, because you don't want to do the surgery, going ahead and retirement, what is that plan? How do you want to fall into that?
I don't know. There are a lot of things I would like to do. I've always planned on doing a lot more traveling with my life, and more writing as well. I'd like to go back to university and study philosophy, but I'll always be within the sport in some way. I've grown up in martial arts, and it will always be a part of me. So as far as my relationship with the sport goes, I don't know. I'm sure that I'll be involved in some capacity. I just don't know what yet. But as far as that, I'm excited about everything else. I mean, my time's wide open. For the first time ever, I'm not thinking about. Got Big Ben in here. For the first time in my life, in my career, I'm not thinking about the next fight. Even when one fight's over and you've got a month off, your head's still. You're looking at the rankings and you're watching the fights and you're trying to figure out who could potentially be next. And for the first time ever, I'm not doing that, which is kind of odd. I'm just kind of.
Is it like a liberating feeling for you?
It is, yeah, because I can start thinking about other things. I can start getting excited about other things in my life that normally I would have to put on a back burner because I'm thinking about training camp.
The Dan Hardy of a few years ago. How would have the Dan Hardy of a few years ago handled this type of news compared to you now, and why the change? Why is it so that your outlook now is so much more different than if it was from before?
It would have been very different before because I really had nothing else in my life other than martial arts. And I dedicated everything to doing this as a career. And I mean, it's fortunate that I am closer to the end of my career than the beginning, because if I'd have had this news, 5 years ago, it wouldn't have been very easy to handle for me. I guess I've just grown up a lot. I've had a lot of interesting experiences in the past 6 months, and I feel like they've really grown me as a person. And I can see the bigger picture a lot better now.
With the bigger picture, taking this news into, I guess, stride, when do you think your decision ultimately will come? Do you see like a time frame that you feel that, I think by this time I'll know what I want to do and my head will be a little bit clearer?
That really depends on the UFC. It's not really up to me. I've made my decision on what I would do if I was given the option, and now I just need to know what decision the UFC are going to make. And I don't mind either way, really. I don't. So that means I can just continue on with my life and start, doing other things and having other plans. And if and when the UFC come back to me and tell me what they want to do, then, the decision will be made at the moment. But as of right now, tomorrow's looking awesome, and the day after looks even better.
To fans, that have seen you over the years, and saw the streak that you had, the losing streak that you had, and then you coming up with 2 fights in a row that you had a lot of momentum. I know to them it was like a punch in the gut, because like it seemed like, oh wow, Dan got his stuff together. He has all this momentum, and then this just happens. I guess, what do you want to say to those fans, that feel like they got a gut check with this, with that news?
I can guarantee nobody's more disappointed than I am, and just because I'm at peace with it, it doesn't mean that it's not disappointing. Because I mean, I was looking forward to fighting Matt Brown. Really, I was. I have a lot of respect for him, and I knew it was going to be a great fight. And I still never feel like I don't even feel like I've scratched my potential, you know. There are things in the sport that I wanted to achieve that that I haven't achieved, and things for myself as a martial artist that I wanted to achieve that I may never now. So I don't know. I mean, I apologise, but this, you know, it's kind of out of my hands. It's a curveball from the universe, and I've just got to figure a way of hitting it right back.
What were those things that you wanted to go ahead and accomplish that you feel that now you won't be able to scratch the surface of?
Just a better grasp of martial arts, a better grasp of fighting, and of training myself in the gym to allow my instinct to take over in the fight. It's something I've been reading a lot about recently, and you know, the way that the brain developed, and I like the idea of being able to kind of just be a passenger in the fight and relinquish control to your instinct. Because I mean, we are the apex predator, and you know, we have that ability to just fight from instinct. But because we're you know, consciously evolved so much, we restrict ourselves by overthinking things. And I've felt it in fights before. You know, in the Ludwig fight, I was overthinking it for the first, you know, 45 seconds until he cracked me with a good right hand, and then immediately I was switched onto, you know, my reptilian brain, and my body just took over, and at that point I'm literally just a passenger. I'm just kind of enjoying the experience and living right in the moment, you know. But then, you know, with my fight after against Amir, there were moments of that, but I was never able to fully access it and just allow the fight to happen. I was always overthinking, and you know, probably because it was my hometown. But I was looking for in this next fight, with it being a guy, you know, as tough as Matt Brown, I knew it was going to be a war, and my intention was to try and you know, not go in there with a game plan and just completely relinquish control and just react to the moment and whatever happens. It's still something I'm working on in the gym, but you know, a fight scenario is obviously the perfect place to try it out.
It's very Bruce Lee-like in the qualities of be like water, flow like water, where it's just kind of go and be in the moment, and whatever happens, you go ahead and capitalize on that opportunity.
He was definitely onto something. I mean, you know, I read all his books when I was in my teens, and I still go back to them now, and every time I reread them, I'll see something differently, you know, that I will understand something on a different level. It's a shame that he died when he did, because I think his progress would have been, you know, astronomical after that point. I mean, he was really starting to scratch the surface of something, and you know, I'm trying to understand martial arts in my own way and understand how they integrate with the human as a predator. If
the decision does come down to that you can't compete anymore because of, you know, the condition that you have, do you think a part of you that will still want to go and compete and try to compete maybe overseas, or if it's done to you, it's done, and you'll be able to move on past that?
Well, it's really on the UFC. If they say that they want to use me in Europe or Australia or Asia or whatever, then you know, that's a great option, and I'll take it, you know. But I would never consider going and fighting for a different organization or anything like that. Maybe a couple of Thai boxing matches. That came into my head the other day. I was like, yeah.
Why that?
Because it's just so much fun. You just get to stand and beat the hell out of each other and see who falls over first, you know. But I don't know. It really, everything's really up in the air, because I don't know how other people are going to react to it. I mean, for me, I would just carry on as normal, because I have no reason not to. So really, it's not up to me. It's up to the promotions and the commissions and all the people that, you know, have not really got anything to do with my life. You know, it's just one of those frustrating things. I've got to hand over control to somebody else that I don't really feel has that decision-making ability in my life. But it is what it is.
If you were to stop now, would you be satisfied with what you were able to achieve in your career, or you'd still kind of be like, man, you know, just...
I wouldn't be disappointed.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be disappointed. My goal was always to get to the UFC. And after my first 2 fights in the UFC that I'd won, I realised that, you know, now it's time to kind of reassess and you know, set some new goals, because those first 2 fights I was just kind of like, yeah, I've made it. You know, I'm happy now. But there are other things that I would like to achieve within the martial arts, and obviously competition is the best way of doing that. But there's a lot of learning to be done in the gym still. You know, I'm definitely not done with martial arts. You know, not by any stretch of the imagination. I have a long journey through the martial arts to do, and possibly through different forms of competition. I don't know, but Yeah, I carry martial arts wherever I go, and you know, to be forcibly removed from competition would be frustrating, but it's a long way from the end of it, you know.
Do you feel, in your opinion, that you're just barely peaking right now? You're barely growing into your athletic peak?
Years and years of training have led me to the point where, you know, my diet's right, my lifestyle's right. I'm not cutting loads of weight. I'm not getting out of shape during during off season, and I'm healthy. I have no injuries. I've literally today is the best I've ever felt in my life, and I will say the same thing tomorrow because it'll be better than today. And the weird thing is that now everything's kind of finally come into balance, and you know that the platform's right to be a fantastic athlete. The opportunities kind of effectively taken away from me. So it's a weird scenario, but you know, I mean, perhaps all that time has got me to this stage to you know, live with it, with health, and take it in a different direction. You know, a lot of people would say I've lost my mind, but I kind of think I'm starting to find it a little bit. Yeah.
Why do you feel that you lost it before and you're starting to find it now?
Because I was too, my thinking was too clouded. I was too focused on beating that guy down and taking the win bonus for myself, and you know, filling a bank account with money and having a couple of cars, and you know, none of that matters to me, and none of it ever has. But the world gives you that operating system to, you know, to function with, and I've just downloaded a new operating system, and I'm working on something different now, and none of that really matters to me anymore. So that's probably why I'm at peace with this, because a lot of people, their first instinct would be, oh no, how am I going to make money, you know? And money will come to me. I trust in the universe.
It's I guess that overwhelming understanding of that, you know, in the end everything is going to work out, that kind of has you, you know, at peace and not really freaking out or stressing, or like you said, going ahead and losing your mind.
Yeah, no, I am literally, I'm at the mercy of the universe, and whatever happens. I'm just kind of ready for whatever, and I'm in a good place. I'm physically, mentally, I'm in a very good place to just take on whatever comes next. So really, it's an open book at the moment. Anything could be written.
Dan, on a final note, you know what? I guess a message you would send to your fans right now, you know, given everything that has happened, that you want to tell them.
I don't know. I can't really say much more than I already have. Stay tuned. There's a lot of good stuff coming in one way or another, in some form or another. I'm going to be doing a lot of good stuff in the next few years. So just stay in touch and keep living the sport and keep living life.
Well, we're trusting in the universe that everything works out in your favor. Here with Dan Hardy, I'm Marcos Villegas, thanking you all for tuning in with us over here at Fight Hub TV.